And thank you for coming. We had this wonderful announcement. By now, I hope that you've received some word of it, either from the Globe or from the alumni office, or some of the other things that we've sent out. The school or the university announced the naming of the medical school last Thursday. It's the Aram V. Chobanian Avedisian School of Medicine. The naming comes with a gift of $100 million that will come in over the next 5 years. 20 million of it is already here as of about a week ago. The entire gift will be endowed, and the instructions from the donor are that 50% of it goes for scholarships for medical students, 25% for professorships, for recruiting and retention for faculty, and 25% can be used for educational and research programs. So how this all happened is actually a really nice story. Aram and Ed were childhood friends. Actually, Aram was friends to the older brother of Ed, and Ed was the kid brother that always hung around, and so there was a lot of ribbing on the stage when the announcement was made between the two of them. But Aram gave the older brother his clarinet when he didn't want it anymore, and the older brother didn't like the clarinet or didn't do well, but the younger brother picked it up, went to BU on a scholarship. Scholarships are important, and got 2 music degrees and became the first clarinetist for the Boston Pops and the Boston Ballet, and served on many other orchestras for the next 30 years before retiring a couple of years ago. Along the way, he did some investments. He got into Microsoft back in 1990 or 1980 or so, did very well, kind of enjoyed trading. So he became quite wealthy and has made a lot of really nice gifts to the Armenian community and to the University of Armenia, all of which carry the names of others. This is the only naming gift that he has made. There was actually an argument between the two of them. Aram didn't want the school named for him, and Ed didn't want the school named for him. And the compromise that allowed them to move forward was we get both names. So I'm sure you have questions. I'd be, basically, it would be great if you guys would come on so we can see you. But we're excited about this. We can't wait to get some of the resources because it will be transformative for the medical school. So I'm sure you have questions and thoughts. So here's your opportunity to ask them. You can put your hand up or put something in the chat.
Karen,
Dr.
yeah, how does this the money that half of this that's going to the scholarship used for scholarship, how does that impact your strategy about scholarships?
We have currently about $60 million in
Right.
endowed scholarships, so this will almost double that. But it'll come in over 5 years, so it's not immediate. The first tranche, as I said, was in, so there's $10 million for scholarships. That's terrific. That goes into the endowment and starts to actually generate funds. Right now, the market's not doing too well, but that should generate about $200,000 for scholarships next fall. If it is starting now, it'll take a couple of months for the fund to start generating funds. So that substantially increases the amount of need-based, the donor-specified need-based, that substantially increases the need-based scholarships that we can provide to the students. It's not going to be a situation where we can make medical school tuition free. If you do the math, in order to do that, NYU went from 160 or 70 students to 100 students. So they brought the number down, and they have, in order to pay that tuition, they have about $600 million in their endowment. Where, if you do the math, I just told you that we have 60, we get 50, so we'll have 110. So that allows us to maybe come, since we're already meeting about $45,000 worth of need, that might bring us up to meet full need for tuition. That would be terrific if that happens. And then the students would have to take loans out for room and board if they had that much need. So it helps a lot, but it's not going to make tuition free.
Got it. Thanks.
Sure.
Are you going to lower the tuition then, at least?
I heard somebody asking a question, but I didn't get the question. Oh, it's Dr. Sun.
I'm
Go
not
ahead.
doctor, but okay.
Oh,
Thank you.
okay, Mr. Sun. What was the
Yeah.
question?
Yeah, I'm sorry. So are you going to make are you going to lower the tuition if not free? Can you hear me?
It's kind of hard to lower the tuition. We just try very hard not to go up very quickly. So whereas the university increases tuition by 3%, we increase tuition by 2.8% or something like that. We are going up slower than our peers. So we drop relative to other medical schools, but we still have to pay the faculty, particularly with inflation being what it is. We usually have given the faculty 2.5% raises. This year we had to give them 4% because inflation's 6%. But we increased tuition by 2.8. We can do that because tuition is not the major income provider for us. It's actually grants and that sort of thing, and research. But nevertheless, we can't stay straight on tuition and still pay faculty and staff.
Karen, Dr. Miller is asking, what is the current tuition at the School of Medicine?
Yeah, I saw that. It's about 67,000.
That's a far cry from when I was in school.
It's a far cry from when I was in school too.
Yeah. Yeah. Gosh.
We actually, our tuition is lower than Tufts, Harvard, Dartmouth. So we're actually lower than theirs. Since I told you that we meet full need up to 45,000, the students aren't many of the students whose families can't contribute are not paying that much.
Okay.
Yes, Dr. Sverling.
Karen, what a wonderful, wonderful honor for someone I knew very well. He was my senior faculty advisor. When I was in school, I graduated in 1969. He edited and reviewed my paper on platelets and atherosclerosis. So I've never forgotten him. And we've had contact over the past number of years. How is his health? How is he doing? I wish you were on this, this Zoom also. And also the last piece would be, I wish I had not thrown away my violin when I was a student, when I was young. It sounds like the music should have been my extracurricular activity. And lastly, maybe this guy, Avedisian, should help the pension fund and also the investment fund at Boston University. What an amazing story. But anyway, the honor for Dr. Chobanian could not be greater. And I'm very proud to have been a student and known him all these years. And I wish him well. I hope he's okay.
This resonates with a lot of people for exactly the reasons that you say. Often when schools get named, it's named by a business person who can embarrass the school. In this case, everybody resonates with the naming of the school for Aram because everybody has such warm feelings for him. And he was he probably signed the diplomas of many people who are on this call. I agree that there's a connection between music and medicine. We have two baby grand pianos on the medical campus, one up in the student lounge and one in the student residence. And we have to kind of replace them every 12 to 15 years because the students use them. They don't abuse them, but they just get a lot of use because we have lots of people who are almost Juilliard quality musicians, but medicine will be their day job, even if they love music. So many good comments there. Thank you. Craig Title, Dr. Title.
Hi, Dr. Antman. How are you?
I'm fine. I'm Karen, by the way.
So that's an amazing gift. I'm just curious, are there any plans for any building improvements with use of part of these funds?
Well, the donor said that all of this is going to be endowed, so there's no building per se, but we are working on an education building for right behind because basically the last education building, you will remember, went up in 1968. That was at a time when we had 500 students on campus. We now have 3,500 students on campus. So obviously it was not built for the current number of students. And things like sim centers and clinical skill centers weren't even imagined at that time. So having a new education building would allow us to update our clinical skills, teaching facilities in some of our classrooms. That we would do with a loan from the university plus donations and plus operating funds, and we think we can do it. A little bit more on the plans if we develop them, but we are thinking about that because of the need for upgrading the educational facilities.
In regard to what you just said before, I'm definitely in favor of more baby grand pianos.
It's striking. I don't know whether it's the discipline that you get from having a music background that makes people with music background successful in medicine, or whether there's some other connection, but it's remarkable how many people in medicine also play an instrument very well. Could everyone please mute if not speaking? Okay. Other questions about the gift? It was really fun having a really great secret for a couple of months. We actually signed the papers on August 15th, and then everybody went to work so that while the announcement was being made, there was an army back in the building that was swapping out the signs so that when people came back into the building, the proper name was on the wall. The front of the building where it said Boston University School of Medicine they dropped a kind of like a covering, and the words were up there. It's fun to tell you the story that when they named the management school, they put up the new signs at midnight, but the students were up at midnight, took pictures of it, and it was all up on Facebook the next morning. So for us, they put up the sign at 4 in the morning and then put the cover over it. So they could dramatically drop the cover during the naming. And none of the students were up at 4, put it that way. So they didn't find out the secret early. So how do you feel about it? I mean, basically you're our alums or former faculty, that sort of thing. What did you read? What are your thoughts? What should we do? Dr. Siegel, you're on mute, Stu.
There we go. So obviously, I think this sort of a gift elevates the medical school. I think that's the first thing. I mean, it increases the visibility of the medical school. I am sure it will have an impact on it being viewed as even more excellent than it is. It adds to that. When someone makes an investment like this type, and I saw that here out at USC when the Keck Foundation named USC, it really transforms the whole sort of morale and the atmosphere around the medical school. So I'm sure it's going to have that kind of an impact. I'm sure you're looking forward, probably already seen that at the medical school. So I think it's a great thing. I think it's going to do nothing but improve the stature and the excellence of the school. And I think it'll be reflected in its evaluation by prospective students and also those organizations that look at schools and rate them. I'm sure it's going to have an impact on that as well. I was kind of curious as to how you're going to go about dealing or deciding about the endowments and not the tuition endowment, but the endowment for faculty. How are you going to deal with that? What's the process you use for that?
Well, the first one, and it's actually in the endowment agreement, is that the NEEDL, the Emerging Infectious Disease Director, will be an Avedisian professor. So that's with the first tranche of funds that will fund 2 professorships, one of which goes to the NEEDL director. We just announced that Nancy Sullivan from the NIAID, from National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Disease, who currently works at the NIH level 4 lab, is our new director. She's got really, really good contacts because she's been giving out the money for the last whatever, and she actually has been on the ground in Africa or whatever, dealing with Ebola outbreaks and that sort of thing. So she will be a terrific addition. So she will be an Avedisian professor. The other professorship this year will probably go to our new chair of pharmacology that we're recruiting from Mount Sinai, and she'll be arriving December 1st. By the way, we have a new chair of medicine, Dr. Hollenberg, who's arriving November 15th. And he's coming from Cornell. He's actually the chair of medicine at Cornell in New York City. I think he likes Boston better than New York City, so he was very happy to be recruited back to Boston. So we've got 3 leaders coming in this 2-week period between November 15th and December 1st. I think that some of our people stayed on for COVID and got us through COVID and then said it's time for me to retire. Let's see, I graduated in 1980. My father was faculty, yes, for 15, and our director at Amazon. I'd like to find time to find other ways to create more Oh, I'd love to. Okay, good. So we have people who are interested in scholarships. Happy to talk to you anytime. I'll get back to you. Any other comments or thoughts?
Karen, there's a message in here from Ken's son. Did I hear you correctly that the projected annual revenue from the tuition endowment will be used to increase need-based scholarships only? Will the average medical student at BUSM be able to apply for any new scholarships as a result of this endowment?
The endowment basically says these are need-based scholarships. As I said, we've now, at this point, we meet full need up to 45,000. So that includes a larger number of students who are eligible for need-based aid. If we are able to increase to meet full need to a higher number, that would bring in more students who would be eligible. The aid across the United States is determined by a federal form that you have to use your tax returns as documentation, and it does take into account how many students that you currently have in college or graduate school, and whether you own a house and what other assets you have. So it's a standardized mechanism that's used by universities all over the country, and we use it too, but it is need-based. The school gets to determine how high up they can go, and it depends on how much scholarship aid they have, how far towards whether they can go all, full tuition scholarships based on need. We can't do that yet, but we would get closer. Dr. Swirling.
Yes, thank you again. Will any of the money be diverted or used for ancillary, for example, the PA programs or other your ancillary programs?
Well, the 25% that's for educational and research programs could be used for other programs. There's nothing that says it can't be, but it has to be an educational or research program.
Understood.
That's more the discretionary money, that quarter of it.
Okay.
The professorships will make an enormous difference because it's really a major asset when you're trying to recruit a new chair or a new senior person, a new senior leader, center director, cardiovascular institute director, cancer center director, that sort of thing. It's really, really nice to have professorships because that people are much more attracted to come for those because they don't have to generate 100% of their income from grants and things. So it makes life, especially if you want to do some administration, if we want them to do administration, it pays for some of their time. I'm not seeing a whole lot of questions and I don't want to take all of your time in the evening, but we're really excited about this gift. If you have questions later, after you've thought about it for a while, my email address is kha4@bu.edu. If you can't remember that, it's BUSMDean. The BUSMDean at bu.edu is answered by the people in the office, so they do see it. It's not totally private, though my KHA4 address is totally private. So be happy to answer any questions privately if you think about them later. And Suzanne has just put it on the chat.
Karen, I don't know if you know this answer or not, so I apologize, but do you know how many named medical schools there are currently? I think it's under 10.
Oh, no, I don't think so. But I could answer your question, but I'd have to count them.
Yeah.
So, but
I don't believe it's too many. I think we're in a group of few.
Good. Well, we as you can tell, we're delighted by this. Oh, by the way, maybe some of you know Sarkis Kachigian. He's the one who kind of started this thing. He emailed in February and said, what would it cost to name the school? And we gave him a number, that we being president of the university. And since he's in Texas and a cardiologist, we thought, oh, maybe it's an oil type person, and said that Sarkis would be happy to fly down and talk to the potential donor. And then everything went quiet. We couldn't figure out what was going on. And then the family surfaced and we figured out who the donor was. The donor was in Boston all along. It's the connection with the Armenian community in Boston that Sarkis was tapping into. Sarkis Kachigian is one of our alums who's a cardiologist down in Texas. So anyway, it's been pretty exciting to have this all get into place. And it was really nice to have a celebration with the two of them on Thursday. So thanks for coming. Again, if you have questions, happy to answer them. Take care.